Peace, everybody. It is I, the Energy Master, the Emma, and you are watching the Leopard in the Mirror Canticle of the Mutant Guardian. Available on Amazon. Get your copy today if you don't already have it. And we getting busy with episode 11, still in book 1, The Descent of Knowledge, and today I will be reading and discussing Born, the Child of the Altar. So, you know what? Let's just jump right into it. As you know, I record these live on Facebook first, and then I schedule them to be uploaded on YouTube. All right, and it's summer vacation for my daughter, so I don't have as much free time in the daytime to record these, so I gotta record them when I can. All right, but yeah, let's go ahead and get busy. Canto IX, Born, the Child of the Altar. When the thunder quieted, the air remembered how to listen. Bird song returned. Uncertain at first, then certain as forgiveness. The flooded streets gleamed with their own reflection, heaven's mirrors scattered in puddles. Each one held the face I had worn, the mourner, the maker, the man who mistook power for will. From the wreckage of sound, a silence was born. That was not absence, but awareness. It spoke without voice. You are not what ended, you are what begins again. I walked among uprooted palms, their roots like open hands, grasping for what they once knew. And I saw that life never lets go. It only rearranges its grasp. Beryl, Helena, Milton. The trinity of wind had passed, leaving offerings in their wake. Driftwood, glass, and memory. From them I built an altar, not of mourning, but of measure, a geometry of gratitude. I placed my son's toy drum there, its skin still taut, its rhythm intact. When the breeze struck it, the sound it made was like a heartbeat returning. And I understood, to be born is not to begin, but to continue, what no death can undo. In the circle of life and its echo, I heard the same truth spoken by prophets, physicists, and poets, that creation is repetition, perfected by love. The guardian stirred within me then, not as an angel descending, but as memory ascending, the part of me that had always known how to return. He whispered, the storm was not wrath, but rhythm. You were not punished, but tuned. And so I rose, not from grief, but from gravity. My son, my teacher, my proof. His name became breath again, woven through every motion of the world. The water receded, the earth exhaled, and I began the sacred work of living once more. All right. Peace. We got St. Louis in the building. I see you. Yeah, so that's Canto IX right there. I'm going to go back to the top of it. Probably done overshot it. There we go. Oh, yeah, I done overshot it a lot. Where we at? There we go. Boom. All right, so we're going to go right through it. All right. It says, when the thunder quieted, the air remembered how to listen. Bird song returned, uncertain at first, then certain as forgiveness. If you joined us last time in Canto 8, that's where we really got into, the hurricanes. We had 3 hurricanes hit back to back between, I think they started in July, and these were still going on into September, maybe October, in that year in 2024. And so this is the aftermath. So after this particular storm, followed when my son's passing, it's just this imagery of, picking up the pieces and, watching the area of the earth regenerate. So we got the bird song, remembering, after they been hiding away for a little while to avoid the storm. So you were starting to hear those chirps again. It says the flooded streets gleamed with their own reflection. Heaven's mirrors scattered in puddles. Each one held a face I had worn. The mourner, the maker, the man who mistook power for will. So you've got this theme that goes throughout the canticle of like the different phases of water. And then this largely stems from a conversation I was having with the AI about, this concept that it, like, if you read the part in the New Testament when you have the storm, and then Jesus is walking on the water, and then he has Peter come out there onto the water with him. If you read that with the understanding of what everybody's name means in Hebrew, and a little bit about physics, you realize that Jesus floats because he's ice in that situation. So ice floats on water. It's actually anomalous that whereas things that are more dense than the water are supposed to float in it, ice is the opposite. It's a certain way that it's latticed. That means the structure is built to where it actually is less dense than water, but it still floats. So it's like, so you get these things of subverting expectation. Now, on the other end of that, Peter, his name means rock. So it means rock or stones, from Petros, or whatever. And so he was fine until he took his eyes off of Jesus, and then he sank. So there's a difference between being solid, what I'm saying, and then having the right structure for something. So there's a kind of theme of that goes throughout this book. And so when we're talking about these puddles, it's not just the puddles from the storm, but you had the mirror of ice a little while ago, and within the ice, you have the frozen elements of the past, and getting to see them for what they are and all of this. And so as these are melting, and you have puddles after the storm, I'm starting to see like these parts of me that have fallen away started to wash away, especially in the in the wake of my son's loss, because it's just like there's certain lessons that you, on one hand, you hope you never have to learn, but if the unforeseen, and the uncontrollable happens, and you choose to embrace everything that's made available through that experience, not only does it strengthen you in ways, but it gives you the opportunity to be strength for somebody else. Because I guarantee, like, I'm not the first to go through it, and I'm probably not going to be the last. But if I stay in that's something I kind of committed to, instead of like avoiding the hurt. I said, let me immerse myself and just kind of be present to everything I'm feeling right now, everything I'm thinking right now, what I'm seeing around me, and let me see if I can capture and use my gift for converting my feelings into words. Having been an artist most of my life, let me see if there's anything of value I could bring to this conversation in order to be able to give other people, some consolation and some hope. And I actually had absolute strangers, reach out to me and message me on Facebook or whatever else, and they tell me stories about how, either they lost a brother. Matter of fact, there was one guy, he specifically lost his brother in a drowning. Like, it was very similar circumstances when he was younger. Oh man, it just hit me. It just hit me. That was a conversation. He's actually a newspaper reporter around here, a Hispanic guy. He was telling me, he said that was the first time he had ever really talked out loud about losing his brother. And he kind of cried on the phone with me. Never met this guy or whatever. He was just doing the article for for the paper on everything, and that's when I was really starting to understand the impact that the whole thing that my son, just everything it had. It was more than just a loss. It was the birth of something in this area, because like the fact that this was a guy that never felt that he could share about that, and by me, like all of my cumulative trainings and experiences, whatever else, I was putting them to work during that time and getting to see them in action. They say like you don't know if you can swim until you jump in water. You don't know if you can actually fight until you get into a fight. Like that's basically what it was, where I got to see those spiritual muscles that I built over the years actually in action. And so when having that conversation with him and just me being open and vulnerable, it gave him the space to be able to do the same, and and share that very intimate detail with me. And it wasn't like we were strangers, you know what I mean. And I still got my number. I still got his number in my phone, and vice versa and whatnot. But that was just something special to kind of come out of that, because like the last thing I wanted is for like my son's passing to be meaningless or whatever else. Like, and then as you'll see, as this particular canto continues, like you do so much even when you're not here, and you kind of hear that, but like until you're kind of in it and you just kind of see like the effects of it, like you don't really realize it, man. But anyways, it said each the mourner, the maker, the man who mistook power for will. From the wreckage of sound, a silence was born that was not absence, but awareness. Yeah. So that's those moments where you sit still, and then once the noise in your mind quiets down, you start to become aware of those things that are missing from your awareness when you're constantly on the move and things of that nature. And so whenever there's like disasters and stuff, like a hurricane and different things like that, or like COVID, you remember how it was with COVID? Like a lot of people, they were losing their dang minds, but man, that was like the first time in a long time that I could just go out and take a walk and be able to see the sun during the daylight hours and stuff, man. And just be able to breathe the air. And then there wasn't a lot of people out, so it was, it was quiet, chilling with nobody. Police wasn't riding around messing with you. Like I had just started up a new exercise routine when I was in Macon, and I'm over there, and it's not a super nice neighborhood, but it's nice enough. It wasn't the hood, we were staying in, and but I'm walking, and I'm like right across the street from where my apartments are. You know what I'm saying? And these cops, they pull, like I see some folks fly past, whatever. They ain't got nothing to do with me or whatever. These cops, they jump out. And then they patted me and interrogated me or whatever else, talking about I fit some description of somebody that had just broken in the house or whatever else. And mind you, I think I have on a black shirt, and then I have on some like red and black sweatpants or something very specific. And so I hear over the cops' radio. These are two black cops too. I hear over the radio they describing the guy. I know it said something like he had on like black sweatpants or something. Long story short, he did not fit my description. And I'm telling you, for like, yo, I live right there, bro. I'm exercising. Like if I broke in somewhere, where's the stuff that I got? Like I'm out here chilling. I ain't running from nobody. I got on headphones. Who robs a place with headphones in, with earbuds in? Like who does that? So man, but I digress. But it was quiet until people started coming back out. So it spoke without voice. You are not what ended. You are what begins again. Like there that time, like you know, my attitude towards death was I had no lingering fear when it came to it, but it wasn't something that I thought about a lot. But losing somebody that close to you and just kind of seeing how it's just like it's literally like they there, then they're not there. It really gives you insight into how flimsy this thing really is. We kind of walk around like we're invincible. We worry about all sorts of things, that ultimately mean nothing at the end of the day. Like once you kick that bucket. But it reminded me of several different quotes and things that talk about flowers, like the frailty and the temporariness of flowers. They're beautiful because they ain't gonna last forever, and it's not something you try to hoard for yourself. It's something you give to others. It's that sort of thing, and but what came out of all that is probably for the first time I really got interested in how our ancestors and brothers and sisters on the African continent, how they deal with death versus how we deal with it in the States. And these systems, like, people think that, India or Buddhism or somewhere like that has the 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 I don't know, the trademark or the product rights or something. Like they got the stamp on reincarnation. Now this system of reincarnation differs, and it's kind of looked at as this thing that everybody's trying to escape. Like, oh, you're stuck in this cycle of life and death. Well, on the African continent, we because they're fully aware of the cycles and everything else, they ain't getting trapped by nothing. They choose to come back, and like in that system, they choose to come back and reincarnate into their same family. Like when you hear like the Buddhists and whoever else talk about it, they make it sound like it's just this random thing, like you can mess around, come back as a dog or something crazy like this, or whatever. But in the African systems, you reincarnate as a child born into your own family, so you can continue to build on your family's legacy and whatever else. And they got like elaborate systems where they can tell which ancestor you are that's coming back, and they do like a test where they like bury in one tradition, they'll bury an item of the deceased ancestor somewhere, and once you reach a certain age as the child, you're sent out to go find this item or whatever, and then that's how they know it's you. And apparently this is consistently successful enough where they wouldn't be doing it anymore. So they have a very different outlook on the cycle and how detailed the mapping of it has been and all of that. And so those are things I learned after. It wasn't that I was actively seeking, to learn those things, but then things start being revealed to you when you're ready. And I guess just the circumstances and the state I was in, not in spite of it all, but in the wake of it all, I guess it just was the time to start learning, at least understand what the conversation is instead of making assumptions about it. I walked among uprooted palms, their roots like open hands, grasping for what they once knew. And I saw that life never lets go. It only rearranges its grasp. Yeah, so these worlds are not as separated as people will want you to think. You're an electromagnet. It's a anomaly that you're even here with this part of it, but the part that actually makes you run and actually makes you tick, if you understand that part of it and um how it utilizes your physical body and manifests your physical body, but it isn't by any means relying and dependent on it, you could understand a lot more of how the way that Earth is made and the way it generates and preserves energy and so on and so forth is not very hard to start kind of mapping and kind of understanding like how you would have some kind of existence beyond this version of the physical. But once again, we're disconnected from systems and we've been taught to just kind of believe in things in a kind of superficial kind of way. So we don't really look at it like a science to be able to look at certain things with a skeptic's mind, but always a curious and hungry and investigative mind to be able to say, instead of just writing something off as not true, we say, okay, well, what would have to be true for this to be a fact? Like what is missing from my understanding and the things that I know, such that I would understand it to the degree that this person who subscribes to this understands it. You know, Beryl, Helena, Milton. There's your hurricanes right there. The trinity of wind had passed, leaving offerings in their wake: driftwood, glass, and memory. From them I built an altar, not of mourning, but of measure, a geometry of gratitude. Now, the kids, they did have like a little drum that he loved to play, but it was both of theirs, so it ain't something that I took out of there. Every now and then Kalia should sit down and she'll go bang on it. But I did it just kind of came together this way to where it's certain items and things that I thought were long lost that surfaced, like maybe stuff that was at my grandma's house or whatever else during this time, but they just happened to be things I needed to, to make a little altar for my son in the so I got a little altar, essentially, things, pictures, uh different things of his, and just stuff to for his memory. And so one thing that was helpful and has been helpful is me just acknowledging him each day. So like whenever I go into that area, if I have something to do over there, grab this item of clothes or just different things or whatever, I just gotta look and just give him sometimes it may want to just say a few things, and in my head or out loud. I don't care, but for the most part, even if it's just a nod, acknowledge, like hey man, whatever else. And then you may say to yourself, I don't know what your belief set is. We be like, oh, he can't hear you, and so on and so forth. Well, half of his DNA is in me, so it's like even if all I'm talking to is the part of me that I gave to him, like my body knows which parts it gave to him, and then trust me, I know, because when he left, like I could feel like, because your child has, above and beyond an emotional impact, they got a physical impact on you. Like he used to stay on my hip. Like even if like when we look at different pictures and stuff like been taken over the years or whatever, it's like you always. Sorry about that, y'all. My video was interrupted for some reason. Who knows why? But um, they messed up my train of thought. Yeah, but I carried him all the time, so he was like always on my hip, and I used to hold him. Like it was just easier, faster because it's little. It's easier to hold him than it was to like try to, walk him, and he was still small enough for me to me to carry him, and then saying he was my what I call my grippy baby. See, because Kalia, she was. It ain't that she was mean, but she just didn't like anybody touching or holding her when she was smaller. But he was my one that when you pick him up, he just grip you, and all that. And so I got so used to carrying him on my hip, like it was hard. It was almost hard to walk after he was gone, because like I had gotten so used to having the lean, the opposite direction, to hold up his weight, because I ain't got hips. I'm a dude, and so, and so, but you could just feel like how much of an impact somebody has had on your life when that physical weight or those different sensations, those pressures from those hugs, different stuff like that. Like when that's not there at that time, but then it's crazy. You can still feel it, like it's imprinted on you or whatever else, and you can almost reconstruct it, like through dreams or whatever else, And so there's a whole science to that comes along with our ancestral knowledge or whatever, because our people have been around on the planet for longer than anybody else, so they had plenty of time to kind of develop ways to deal with and understand things, just about anything you could think of. And then it says, from them I built an altar, not of mourning, but of measure, of geometry, of gratitude, man. I placed my son's toy drum there, his skin taut, still taut, its rhythm intact. When the breeze struck it, the sound it made was like a heartbeat returning. So, I would have been doing myself and him a grave injustice by trying to avoid feeling and trying to, not think about it. Like I see my wife go through it, man, because I think she tried not to, think about it. So it's like, so it'll catch her off guard when something happened and then just break down. And I mean, I had my moments too, or whatever. You saw me with trying to read that last Canto. Like I don't care how many times I read that, because I was writing it when I was still in a state where it was still kind of fresh and vivid to me. So to read it, like, it really captures, all of that. But I actively, day by day, just try to do something that makes it not something I'm sad about. And I'm not going to sit here and act like it's always something that just makes me cheerful about, but at the same time, I'm not afraid of it. I'm like, I'd hate to, stop, or prevent my son's memory because I'm too scared to, embrace it. But I had so much good times and laughs and love and everything else that is worth it to go through it, just so you can be sure not to lose sight of that side of it. Like if you got to go through the hurt side of it in order to get to that, then you got to do what you got to do, man. But it ain't nearly as bad as it was before, man. And I understood to be born is not to begin, but to continue what no death can undo. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. It only transforms. And then I think what we are afraid of is not oblivion and the idea of not existing, but the idea of not recognizing. Like, what if I don't know me anymore? Which is a possibility. But then the real question becomes, do you really know yourself now? Not your idea of yourself. Do you see yourself through the eyes that everybody else sees you in? Because it's harder to smell your shit when you're the one making it. When you're the one doing the cooking, you don't know how your recipe smells sometimes. And so until you develop these skills and what's the word? These attributes that you develop, these qualities that you develop, where you actively check in with the people around you in order to ensure that the way that you occur to them in reality actually matches the way that you occur to yourself. Does the picture you have of yourself in your head match the common image of you that other people are experiencing? And so born in the supreme mathematics is to be complete on one hand, but essentially it's when something is transformed from mental to physical. All right. Born is to exist, but that existence moves from a state of mental, which is measure, into a state of physical dimension. And a child is born in 9 months from mental to physical. It's just an idea in your head. You got an idea of what he might come out looking like. You've had the ultrasound, but it's still not something you experience truly until, till they pop out to greet the world. All right. In the circle of life and its echo, I heard the same truth spoken by prophets, physicists, and poets, that creation is repetition, perfected by love. Love is understanding and not two separate qualities. Understanding is the mental picture we draw from knowledge and wisdom to see things for what they are and not what they seem to be. Understanding is symbolic of the child. All right. Peace is supreme understanding for the benefit of the whole. So those things go hand in hand, love, peace, and understanding. Love involves the aspect of the man and the woman where in this masculine, feminine, and child tripartite relationship, God shows his love through his wisdom. That's his woman, who reveals to him the hell he must go through to be right. That doesn't mean that she's putting you through hell necessarily, but because she is designed to be a reflection of you, whatever you think you are, or whoever you think you're being, you'll know for certain if that's really the case by how she reacts to you. However she come back at you based on how you coming at her. If you coming at her right and exact, man, you gonna feel that love. If not, then you gonna feel that heat. Or you gonna feel that silence. It's gonna be something, but you gonna know what hell you have to go through in order to get to that heaven you make for yourself. Heaven's what you make it, hell is what you go through. All right. The guardian stirred within me, then not as an angel descending, but a memory ascending. The part of me that had always known how to return. So we look for this external aspect. But while we're sitting around waiting for a hand to reach down, we rarely think and consider that what if the hand is already reaching down and there's just something blocking your view to be able to see it. So in other words, your lack of willingness and awareness to actually reach up and grab that hand is what keeps you where you at. I like to tell. I like this story. Regardless of what your beliefs are, it's a funny one to me. But so really, the story could be used for any flood, but I think in recent times it became more associated with Katrina. It became more popular to associate this with Katrina. But there was a guy. He was out on the roof. It had been a terrible storm, and the floods had come, and so the water's all the way up to the roof. And so this is a religious man, and so a man on a boat comes by. He says, "Hey, brother, you need help?" He said, "No, I'm waiting on the Lord. The Lord's got me." "You sure?" "Oh, I'm sure." "All right, then." So the man going back with his boat. Then a helicopter come by. Person in the helicopter. "Hey, down there. You need help?" He yelled back up, "No, I'm waiting on the Lord." I said, "Huh? I'm waiting on the Lord." "What you say?" "I said, no, I'm waiting on the Lord." I said, "I think he said he waiting on the Lord." I said, "Okay." And so they pull off with their helicopter. Over time, the man still up on his roof, still stranded. He ends up dying. And so when he get to heaven, he can't believe it. What happened? He go to the Lord, and he said, "Lord, I was on that roof, and I waited for you, and I waited for you, and you never came. Why, Lord? Why?" He said, "Boy, I sent a boat, I sent a helicopter. What more do you want from me?" And the moral of the story is this: don't let your idea of what God is or who God is prevent you from seeing him when he's right in front of you. Even if he's showing up as you in the mirror. Because for whoever it is, like, I understand, yeah. This idea that the black man is God whose proper name is Allah, arm, leg, arm, head. Yeah, I get it. If that's where you at, that's useful to you. But just like you weren't taught calculus when you were in kindergarten, you gotta let people get it how they get it. Like whatever's most appropriate for them at a given time. Because everybody isn't ready for, every iteration of the truth. And it is possible for you to get certain information too early, and then you take it out of context all completely. And then you abuse that information, and you misuse that information because you don't have a true understanding of it yet. All right. He whispered the storm was not wrath, but rhythm. You were not punished, but tuned. So I talked a little bit in the last one about how I did this gesture, and it drew a path in the air that just happened to be the same path that the storm took through this area. And the ego would have you think, "Oh man, did I do that? That was, dang, I got it like that." Or you come to the realization that there is a certain rhythm to the world, and there's a rhythm to nature, and in certain circumstances we become hyper attuned to those aspects, and so we start to move and speak and act with a timing that is synchronized with the greater rhythms of nature and the planetary bodies, all of that. And so that sense that we get, that feeling that we get when we are in sync, and in this idea of submission and whatever else, who are you submitting to? What is that? Well, it's simply a matter of, are your actions being driven by ego, or are you receptive enough to first recognize the rhythms, and then to accept those rhythms as instrumental in your life? Because when you move with the stream, it's a lot easier to operate, but don't mistake the natural stream for the stream of BS that is presented in the social and political, and the type of reality that's overlaying the actual reality that we live every day. So it's like a lot of things we look at as being punishment from the stars, or wrath of this or that. Oftentimes it's just you out of rhythm. Because if you was actually on point, you wouldn't be tripping over your shoelaces. And so I rose not from grief, but from gravity. My son, my teacher, my proof. His name became breath again, woven through every motion of the world. Like I said, that situation, it showed me, all those years of spiritual cultivation were actually worth it, because they definitely came in handy during that time, just to not collapse, because I still had another child that needed to be taken care of, so I couldn't be totally consumed and just just give up or whatever else. I had to be around for her and stuff. And so he so in many ways, he was my greatest teacher, man. Like even while he was here, it was just, I learned patience from him. I learned like, instead of being out chasing some goal, like my goal was just to be there for my kids. Like you never know how much time you got for somebody. Like, it never crossed my mind that time would be cut short like that. But just, it's like kind of like a retrospect sort of thing, man. It's like, I'm thankful for every time I said, nah, I can't go out, or I can't hit the road this time. My son got therapy in the morning or whatever else. Like, every time I did it, I'm grateful I chose to spend that time. The water receded, the earth exhaled, and I began the sacred work of living once more. So, took time, and I'm still, clawing my way back up and whatnot, but that's where it began, or whatever, in the aftermath of the storm, and just seeing what's what and where's where, and giving myself the necessary time. It's just what it was. So we'll see next time, what that became, as we move on to the next Canticle. All right. Well, thank you for joining me. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.